Colin Berry.
Good morning to you. It has been a long time since we met up at breakfast time. The reasons why I'm here will become all too clear, but before the explanations, let's get into what promises to be a good 2.5 hours of music to speed you on your way. This is Elvis Presley and Suspicion. Getting off the breakfast show on this Thursday, the 25th of January, that's Elvis Presley and Suspicion. It's 25 minutes to 8 o'clock, and I'm sure you know where Terry Wogan is. You do, don't you? You don't? Well, you can't have been listening all through this week then. In fact, he's gone to Singapore on Concorde, the inaugural flight, and he's gone via Bahrain. And if you were listening to Pete Murray's programme yesterday afternoon, you'll have heard him chatting to Pete from Heathrow Airport. Unfortunately, the flight didn't take off on time. It took off about 45 or 50 minutes late, so there's been a bit of a knock-on effect, and unfortunately, because of that, he didn't manage to chat to John Dunn from Bahrain in the afternoon. But he did talk to dear old Brian Matthew in round midnight at 1:15, which was yet again a little bit later than expected. So we can only keep our fingers crossed and hope that he pops up between now and 10 o'clock. We're hoping for about 8:15, so stay tuned. This is Billy Joe Spears. That's Mouth and McNeil, and one of those failed Eurovision Song Contest entries called I See a Star. I'll say we do.
Terry Wogan. Out and about today. Here on Radio 2.
And it's 20.5 minutes past 8, and there are no trains here in, well, it's the tubes, but in Britain there's a rail drivers' strike. So Terry Wogan has decided to come to work the long way round, and he's flown on Concorde to Singapore. He should be on the line now from Bahrain. Good morning, Terry.
Hey, good morning, Colin. Nice to talk to you.
Good to talk to you.
Are you still banjaxed by the snow and ice there?
We are, and expecting some more too, Terry, I'm afraid. How are things?
Well, it's 65 degrees in Bahrain. There's clear blue skies.
Have you had
and we'll leave Heathrow at 9 o'clock, but I've just popped in here to dive into the duty-free. And also, of course, to have a chat to you, as we've been talking to Brian Matthew from Singapore around about 1:15 this morning. And I think I left my brain back here in Bahrain the first time round. I think I've left my body in Singapore, and I'm sure both of them will catch up with me in Britain round about next Sunday.
I reckon you're right, Terry. Tell us some of your experiences en route, so to speak.
Well, of course, travelling on the Concorde, you're travelling for much of the time as fast as a bullet shot from a gun. In fact, quicker, twice the speed of sound. And Singapore impressed me immensely, even though I wasn't in perhaps the best kind of form to appreciate it, because it was really sunny. It was in the low 80s. Marvellous to get a bit of sunshine on your back after all that snow and ice in Britain. And, the gardenias and the bougainvilleas were in bloom, and we had about an hour and a half to sightsee the city. So we saw as much of it as we possibly could, got up to the heights above Singapore and had a look around and look over towards Malaysia. Marvellous place, Singapore. Really was impressed by it. Bustling. It's full of every nationality. But as for the Concorde, it's been an absolutely faultless flight, This is a special one, of course. It's Alpha Delta. It's been painted by British Airways in the colours of both airlines. Dark blue and gold of Singapore Airlines on the port side and red, white and blue of British Airways on the starboard. Interesting, in Singapore, it seemed to me that they had washed the Singapore Airlines side of the aeroplane and left the British Airways part a little bit dusty and sandy. Maybe it's only my imagination.
Have you had any sleep at all, Terry?
Oh, yes, I've managed to catch a few 40 winks in between platefuls of caviar and buckets of champagne. But it's been very comfortable, not at all squashed, as some people have said it would be, and not at all noisy in the plane, despite the enormous speeds that you're traveling. As I said, it's amazing to feel that I've been traveling at twice the speed of sound and faster than a bullet from a gun.
We saw you take off on the BBC Television News last night from Heathrow Airport. So you're having a good time, Terry, anyway?
Well, as I say, I managed to keep my head above water, and I hope that when we get into London, as I say, we'll leave for Heathrow at 9, that I'll be at least conscious enough to talk to Pete Murray in open house. 3 3/4 hours to London. Of course, we've already travelled, incidentally, I don't want to be dazzling you with numbers and everything, but we've travelled how many thousands of miles? I should have this kind of thing at my fingertips, Colin, but it's not all that easy. Altogether, there's 10,000 odd miles, and it used to take 9.5 days, to go from Croydon Airport to Singapore, and it only takes 9 hours by Concorde now.
Good heavens.
Which knocks about 6 hours off the subsonic flight time.
Yeah.
We've had a wonderful welcome everywhere. People have really looked after us in in Singapore, particularly in Bahrain. This is my second trip to Bahrain. I haven't seen anything of it yet. It was night time when I was here last. And now the sun is shining.
You were a bit behind, weren't you? Because you left Heathrow about 50 minutes late, is that right?
Yes, we were looking forward to talking to John Dunn live, but unfortunately couldn't do that because we got in here just about a half an hour too late. The pilot did everything he could, but half an hour too late to talk live to John. But as I say, I talked to Brian Matthew at 1:15 this morning, which was a very revealing experience.
I was asleep, I might add. And rightly so.
You didn't stay awake for it. I'm most disappointed.
I'm afraid not. But you've caught up with yourself now because it's 24.5 minutes past 8 here in London, so you're pretty well on schedule now, Terry, yes?
Yeah, I'm just hoping that one lot of jet lag will cancel out the other, Colin.
I know
you've got the program to get on with and all sorts of things. I don't know whether there's any racing today, is there?
I've not heard of any yet, Terry. I've got my doubts somehow. But anyway...
Okay, well, I'm sitting here in an open neck shirt and my light trousers. I suppose I'd better get back into the dungarees and the polo neck sweater before we get to London.
Well, I'm here in my lumberjack jacket, all dressed up for the conditions. I wish you a safe journey back, Terry, and we'll hear from you on Pete Murray's open house.
Of course, Colin, and I look forward to being back in the seat that you're keeping warm for me tomorrow morning between 7:30 and 10 on Radio 2.
Great, Terry. Cheers for now.
Thanks, Colin.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
And what better way can we get out of that bit of chat with Terry than with this, Up, Up and Away. That's Neil Diamond and a track from the Radio 2 album of the week. That's called You've Got Your Troubles. Well, I trust you haven't got any troubles today, apart from the obvious ones, of course. Yes, you're still in a traffic jam. Well, actually, we haven't heard too much from our motoring unit today, so fingers crossed, hope things are going well for you. Well, Terry Wogan will be back in London by about lunchtime talking to Pete Murray. All being well, he'll be back in the studio tomorrow morning. My name's Colin Berry, and I'd like to thank my producer Jeff Mullin for holding my hand, so to speak. Our next date is on Saturday night, Sunday morning, when I'm presenting the first of our regular Through the Night programmes. I'll be with you from 2 until 6, so if you can make it, I'll be more than glad. The title of the programme, You and the Night and the Music, and you're a very important ingredient. From me to you, goodbye, and have a lovely day. Bye-bye. The time now is 10 o'clock, and let's join Sarah Kennedy at the Radio 2 news desk.
With no trains for the fourth time in 10 days, commuters have had another struggle to get to work. Although the slow thaw has meant there's less ice on the roads, there have been huge traffic jams in many places since before dawn.